In the last few weeks, if not the entire calendar year so far, 7 weeks in, there have been some questions about the state school board and some of the things that are going on in terms of who's in charge and what happens on the local level in some cases.
Well, that's right. I'm starting to get some questions, sometimes from educators, relative to what's going to happen with the State Board of Education, since they currently do not have a quorum of members, so they cannot meet or make any decisions. It has put an element of uncertainty, I guess, in the institutional education that has not traditionally been there. We actually voted on a bill in committee this week in government reform that Senator Romine has proposed that changes some of the appointment process. I think he was particularly upset with some of how the State Board of Education appointees were made, and I think this is in some measure a retaliation, although there are, I think, some parts of it that probably have some value. I voted against the bill in committee because I feel like that we're not to the point yet that I want to see the bill move forward. There were some things I would like to see changed, but there is work, I think, being done on the bill, and that may go forward. In terms of the current status of the State Board, the governor, of course, withdrew his appointees prior to the deadline for interim appointees, which then kind of protected their possibility of service, and then reappointed them while we were in session. There's some politics and constitutional issues involved there that I won't get into, but basically he was able to preserve their appointments that way. I've met with 3 of the board members, of the appointees, I guess in the first weeks of session. Some of them were coming around because they thought they might be on the agenda and might be heard in our gubernatorial appointments committee. Was just really encouraged by the men and women that I met with. I was encouraged by how they were approached, the questions that they were asked in terms of their goals and vision for education, what they would like to do as board members, why they were interested in serving, the kinds of things that just really, I felt like, helped to reveal their hearts and reveal their goals as state board members. One of the things that I was particularly interested in, because of all the media attention that those appointees had received, was whether there was coercion and how much coercion there was in the decision, which is what really ruffled the feathers of some of the institutionalized leadership, the superintendents and principals, and maybe even some teachers. The decision to dismiss the commissioner of education, that vote was taken and was carried by appointed but not yet confirmed state board members. That is what raised a lot of the contention that came afterwards. I tried to delve into that with the 3 appointees that I met with, and in every case, without exception, it was clear that the governor's office had imposed no litmus test, had not even discussed with them the idea of dismissing the commissioner, that they had each one come to that conclusion independently. One of them in particular said that that was essentially his recommendation when the governor's staff asked him what he thought should be done to improve education. His words weren't exactly that, but that's basically what he suggested, is that we need to start at the top. And so it was pretty clear from my interviews with them that the accusations, at least if they might have related to their appointments, were completely false, and that they had had no influence from the governor or the governor's office. Some of them hadn't even met with the governor, only with staff. They had come to that conclusion completely on their own based on their interviews with other educators. In one case, one of the appointees had been threatened by administrators in her area, had even had her husband's job threatened, that had her husband's company had been called asking for his dismissal if she voted a certain way on the commission. Another visited with school representatives after he was asked to consider the appointment, and he said he was very unhappy with the confrontational method in which they virtually threatened him if he were to vote to dismiss the commissioner. I'm not sure how all these things get started or where they end up, but at least in those 3 instances, it was very clear that each one of them had come to their own conclusions. The governor had not influenced those decisions, and that they were voting their conscience and voting what they felt like was good for the future of Missouri's education. I was happy with that. I was pleased with each of the interviews. I would very eagerly support any one of those 3. I have not interviewed the others that are currently appointed and have not yet had hearings, but I look forward to those interviews, and I expect to ask them similar questions.